Hello, my name is Drew, and I'm the Aspiring Master, and welcome to the Aspiring Master Presents. This is a show where we talk about the meanings, misunderstandings, and insights about the important words we use and misuse on a daily basis. Really understanding what we're truly meaning when we talk allows us to convey and explain ourselves better to others. This is our first Cut for Time show. These are the insights we weren't able to fit into our hour-long show that we present on public TV every month. And because there's so much left over, we put it all together and, well, here it is. In this Cut for Time episode, we will be using footage we cut from our marriage and anger episodes. First, let's see what we cut out of the marriage episode, shall we? Today, guess what? We're talking about marriage. And, of course, marriage. I have my wife here with me, which should make a quite an interesting show. And I also have Therese Wilson, of course.
Your excellent relation.
coming out to talk about marriage.
I've lost friends because their significant other saw me as a threat. And it's like, no. Even if we had a relationship at some point or because that happens a lot with high school, and it's like, because we're not together now, it doesn't mean we're a threat. I'm friends with, almost every guy I've ever gone out with. And it's like, no, we're not together now. So why would we?
And that brings us to jealousy in marriage. I am not jealous of other women in my husband's life, and he's not jealous of other men in my life.
Right. We had an issue last year with one of our friends who lost her husband to cancer, and Drew was doing some favors and stuff, cleaning their house and everything when they were in Vancouver and stuff, and it got to be where she was getting pretty darn codependent, where she didn't like me to begin with. And just a lot of things that kind of just culminated over a number of years. The way she treated her daughter, I didn't like, and stuff like that. And I told Drew, it's like, I know you're helping her, and I know this is the time, but it's like, you're going to have to stop, because this is interfering in our relationship.
Interfering in your relationship and not really doing her any favor.
No. And of course, she didn't see it that way. Yeah. Of course, she didn't see it that way. She saw it as I forced him to not be her friend anymore. And it's like, that's not what I was doing. Yeah. Other people saw it. And once one of his other friends pointed out, this is not a good situation, then he realized, oh, okay. Because, I'm asking myself, am I overreacting? Am I being too territorial? But if it's causing issues between Drew and I don't care what it is. I have to protect that,
Or at least, or at the very least, you have to bring it into the conversation. Yes.
Yeah. And of course, she and I didn't really have a very good way of communicating that didn't turn out toxic.
Yeah.
Where there was a lot of misunderstanding, and she took what some of the stuff I was saying as being, emotional, and it was not a good situation. But that's probably the only time I've ever had to, other than a previous time with his ex-wife, when I had to put my foot down and say, I think you shouldn't talk to her anymore, because she'd verbally attack him, and he would be he'd shook for 2 weeks. He was so emotionally hurt by that. And it's like,
to clarify that, and because I have to.
You anyway.
Well, no. To clarify that, what had happened is my former wife was a fairly abusive to me, verbally, not necessarily physically, but verbally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And I understood, like later, where it was all coming from, right? It was coming from, she's not being fulfilled. And we're pretty much taught, a lot of the times women are taught, if you're not getting what you want, you browbeat. That's what our parents taught us. We watched them do it. Not everybody did, but I know, I see the majority of people still holding to that form. Anyway, and I'm not giving excuses for her. That's just what she did. But she was really good at covering that stuff up
right? And so as we were moving along, I thought she was progressing, allowing things to be, and all of that stuff, because we were getting the divorce, and I was with Talia, and all of the stuff that was going on. She was, I truly believed that she was moving forward and just letting it go, and life was good, because that's the way that she was reacting. Now, Talia saw the signs that I didn't see, because I wanted to see what I wanted to see, right? And so we went to a counseling session with her for her daughter. And in between, when the counselor asked us both to leave, my former wife ended up like literally verbally like attacking me. And I had no armor on, none. Like I was, like I was free and open and figuring things out and looking to communicate. And then all of a sudden she came out of it, to me, out of left field. And just started attacking me and telling me how horrible I was and what I was doing and all of those things. And that hit me at that time and created such because I have my own internal shames that I haven't dealt with. It just hit them, right? Just all at once, right there, just hit me in all of those places she knew that she can get through. And having no armor there was just that much easier. And I came out, and so Talia had to deal with me for the next 2 weeks, and I was absolutely, literally shaking. I couldn't even talk to people for the next couple of weeks, just because I was so hurt. Everything was on the surface, and it was what Talia's describing is how that happened, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So often, and actually, I can't even remember which author was describing it, but if you've ever watched children when they're doing their playing, and they're playing adults, they automatically become serious. Their faces change. There's well now, and rather unfortunately, we've been indoctrinated into making our children grow up. And that dictation of grow up, suck it up, man up, whatever you want to do. Like, I mean, from my perspective, it was man up, but be serious, be all of these things. And I know that for me as a child, I was a very serious child too. I had to take responsibility for my life, and I also had to stop being a kid very, very early. And because of that, there was times in my life where I was exuberant like a child, right? That people would just shut you down. Like they took offense that you were being childish. And you weren't being childish, you were being childlike, you were being exuberant. And that exuberance was getting shut down all the time in me. And so having had a partner in my life that can play with me, and Talia and I play often. And we do word play, and we do mind play, and I love that kind of play. It is a huge plus for our relationship that we connect on that level. Huge.
And of course, kitchen dances.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dances and hitting each other on the butt with the towel.
Yeah, just impromptu dancing.
And it's not immature behavior. It is actually mature behavior. I think we lost it. I think that we misdefined maturity. I think that being okay with the fact that we are on some levels always going to be childlike is something that we miss. And I think something that relationships and marriages miss out on. I know that I'm being emphatic because I think that this is probably one of the most important points that we have, that in good relationships, you have that kind of play.
Well, that's kind of, that brings us back to friendship. Mm-hmm. Your best friend, you will do that kind of thing with. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily your spouse, unfortunately, but your best friend is a well-rounded friendship most of the time.
So I'm going to,
because they might have started from childhood. But...
That's true.
Right.
I'm going to try and sum up what we've talked about. Okay.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, really. But let's list some of those things that we think can help us create and maintain a great relationship with our spouses. And I know that means that we're being superior here and saying that we have really great relationships, but I think that we can agree.
This is what works. This is what works for us.
Yeah, I can agree at this point demonstrably that we are happier in our marriages than I've seen most people be, right? So to sum up,
dude.
yeah, I know. I'm speaking for all of us here as a patriarch. Anyway.
Great. Here he goes again.
No. He's the host.
Yeah. Oh. One of the things, if I could give any advice to people out there about marriage and about interpersonal relationship, whether it's the commitment level of marriage that we're talking about, okay? Which means that you have to first outline what your expectations are in regards to what the commitment is. Talia and I have 4. Talia, take it away.
Number 1, we like each other. Don't confuse like with love. They are not the same thing. And I'll have Drew explain that in a second. 2, we love each other. Again, not the same as like. 3, try to be as honest as possible. And yes, I know that is difficult. Everyone tells little white lies. There's always some part of us that has to hide something. But try as hard as you can to be honest about everything. And yes, by everything, I do mean everything, even the scary stuff. Number 4, fidelity.
Yeah,
we started
out
things
with those 4 expectations, just as sort of the borders of where our relationship is. Now, we've made other commitments, like the commitment of, listen, we're going to stick with this, right?
Yeah.
Unless we both agree that it's not working.
Yeah.
Right? We both got to agree that it's not working and we can't fix it. Then we're done. Which was those agreements. So we made the agreement. So if anybody's going towards doing that kind of commitment around marriage, first off, understand what commitment you're willing to do. And 2, make those agreements with your partner and make sure that you are both in harmony on those agreements and you follow them. The next thing that I would recommend anybody is, most people are really not that good about understanding how to communicate. First, people don't understand that even if somebody was raised next door to them and they've lived near them all their lives, the same words may mean something different to them because they were raised by different people. They were raised in possibly even a different religion, or even, and everybody's biochemistry is different. And so, because we define words based on feelings, what we feel about one word, like love, a big important one, might be something completely different to that other person. Like Therese was saying, that love could mean money, or money means love to people, right? So we have those equations, and that may not work for me. I didn't get raised like that. So understanding communication is extremely important. And because most of us don't have the background that either Therese or me or even Talia has around, and did I just diminish you? I didn't mean to, right? I didn't mean to, or even Talia has, or even Talia has.
Go for it. I'm used to it by now. So
that we have in this area, I would recommend that if somebody was getting married, that they go through, like I said before, the 2 years of being able to live together, not having kids, make sure that you get past that romance stage, make sure that you're in a position of where you like the person that you're with, which is super, super important.
And that's obviously a general thing, because 9 weeks work just fine for me.
Yeah, well, and it depends on who you are. Like, I mean, Talia and I had a connection from before that
Yeah.
that we had already had a love connection there. Then it was just about, hey, this is what's going on in my life. Did you want to try this out? Because those were my words to her. Did you want to try this out? Come up here and try it out for a month and see if this works for us, right? See where we're going. Now, I'm abnormal when it comes to being able to form a relationship, because I'm very much aware of me and where I am, what I'm able to commit to, and all of that
That's
stuff.
not the only abnormal thing about you, but continue.
Yeah. Okay. And and I have to agree with you.
I guess our fifth expectation would be constant sarcasm.
Yeah, there we go.
Because who doesn't need that?
Well, play. That's constant sarcasm is play for us too, really.
Fine.
Yeah, play. Okay.
Whatever.
But I think that in the beginning, do that 2-year thing. And I mean, and of course it's variable. I'm not saying that you have to do it. It's just it's something that would suit you better if you haven't been as educated in these areas. And the next thing that I would say is, when you get together, because we are not good at really understanding communication and what communication is, go to a marriage counselor to start. This I can't reiterate this anymore. My experience is
I'm going to cut in.
Sure.
Be willing to go to a marriage counselor at the beginning.
Yeah.
Have that in your lexicon as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everyone needs it.
Well, and absolutely. No, right. I'm overgeneralizing, because I see a lot of people having issues with communication.
Yeah, but you were saying it as though you were the authority on it.
Okay, yeah, and that's
well,
true.
That's how he likes to talk,
And that's exactly how I like to talk.
And that's why I softened it.
Okay, no, that's cool. I hear you. And so, but it is worth considering to do, because when you go to a counselor at the beginning, as opposed to near the end, you're not trying to fix anything. You're trying to create a foundation where you don't have to fix anything. And a counselor can help you start to understand each other's languages better, and not to form those hurtful judgments and interpretations, right? That can really undermine a relationship right at the very beginning. And the other thing that I recommend is learn how to play with each other. Find things that you can play with. I'm not talking about going out and playing badminton. I'm talking about being childlike with each other is really, really important. Yeah. Those are my major things. What do you got?
I'm going to take a little bit of exception to one of your agreements.
Sure.
And it's an agreement that works for you, and I won't say that it's wrong or anything. Mm-hmm. But the fidelity agreement. Mm-hmm. My experience with a whole lot of different people is fidelity is oftentimes it's just the circumstance presents itself, they're drunk or whatever, or they just something happens, it's a one-time thing. And if that's the case, then you examine the relationship. You say, what deficit in our relationship allowed this to happen? Fidelity isn't always a deal breaker if it's broken.
I agree.
The strength of the relationship, the foundation of the relationship, is not necessarily betrayed it's wider than just don't cheat on me.
I think that you are correct. I think that it takes a certain kind of awareness in a relationship and a certain level of commitment to understand and to work through something like that. And so
and it's not always personal. It's not always about the spouse.
Mhm.
It's about the person.
Well, I mean, it's always about the person.
Yeah, but but we think it's about us.
Yeah.
So what is it right now that is not functioning properly in you, that is making this relationship not function properly? Sometimes it means that is the end. Well, and sometimes it means that you're discovering more about that other person, the hurt in them that makes them feel they have to be validated by this separate thing, you know. And and how can that person fill themselves to the point where they don't have to do that?
And you know? I absolutely agree with you. I really do. And I know that for Talia and I, not that I would ever break that rule just because I way too many complications. If that,
I would tell them this is going to cost you way too damn much.
Yeah, it's just I see the transaction there, and that's not worth it. But it also on a maturity level, when Talia and I really take a look at it, when we made that agreement on our own maturity level, to have to work through that trust, I also know that it would be the toughest thing that I would ever have to do to be able to work through that trust, because I know my wounds there. Yeah. And so I think that for Talia and I, in that agreement, we consciously made that agreement exactly like that.
And that's an older person relationship.
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about young people, I mean, the male mind in particular doesn't fully mature till 25, 26.
Yeah, well, even if then.
And if the mature mind, if the immature mind is being asked to do something it doesn't fully understand because the hormones are driving you somewhere else, it's too, for me, it was just too blanket a statement.
No, I agree.
Right.
There's always an exception to any rule, right?
They were just our expectations.
Oh yeah,
They don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And we're not.
Yeah.
Oh,
and like I said, I get that it works for you and your relationship. Yeah. But
no, there's other relationships
that sound like something that would have to be a universal.
No, I hear you, and I love the clarification.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, there's lots of relationships where, you know, they're open or polyamorous.
It's an agreement.
And fidelity wouldn't work or wouldn't apply, you know. And it's like, who are we to begrudge that? It's like whatever works for you. If fidelity is not one of it,
if you're not harming each other and others,
Yeah.
Well,
no, we're not saying that to pass judgment.
That's with any commitment.
What works for us.
Given the nature
what works for us isn't going to work for other people. We already know that.
Given the nature of the show, I just wanted that qualified.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, this isn't about passing judgment at all.
Okay, now I would say best friends, absolutely. I would say have an intention for your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want to go with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say absolutely have fun in it. You know, have the fun you would have with your best friend. And of course, you know, communication. Be willing to be, I won't even say be willing to be wrong, but don't have to be right all the time. If you know what I mean.
I think that acceptance is a big thing. I think it's acceptance as people as they are, as opposed to the idea of what they should be.
Well, acceptance of the fact that no one stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
That my husband went outside of the house for 8 to 12 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Something over there was going to influence him,
you
know, and change him. And he's going to bring that back to me. revel in the changes, share them. I never, ever did two things. I never stopped him from talking about work when he got home, because that huge chunk of his life, I wanted to come back into the house so I know about it and I know about him. And I never made him choose between work and home, work and me, because a man, his little hormone instincts have him working for me. So if I have him separate them, I have asked him to not be who he is. And so it was, again, all about allowing my spouse to be who he is, and loving. And of course that means he's allowing me.
Accepting
and loving the growth, loving the newness that makes the relationship new all the time. It's great.
Well, and two, I think you brought up something that's really cool. Of
not the newness of the relationship.
No, there it is. But that was, thanks for the trigger. It's that relationships are not static; they don't remain the same. And I think that we get caught up sometimes in thinking that they should.
Well, that's the trade relationship. I bought in for this. I didn't buy in for growth.
This. Yeah. Relationships are growing all the time, and I think that that's something that you have to take into account before you ever get married. This is going to grow and change. I'm going to be okay with that. And how can we be okay with that? Communication, all the things we've talked about.
And all the other things, yeah.
And next, this is what we cut out of our anger episode. Stay tuned.
And let's look at anger held on to for long term, because it's not like you can just get over anger, right? Like not really.
Actually, it is. You can't just get over anger.
Well, no. I'm talking about on a long term, what most people do level here. I'm not saying that you can't. Of course you can.
Okay. You didn't say that we can't. So I correct you.
I know I did. But I'm saying that long term anger. Which means that I get angry. At a former lover that we split up and we're angry with each other, and that anger. And every time I think about this person, I feel the anger. Right. All of a sudden, your muscles are all tensing. You've got the stress. There's more. Your heart rate goes up. All of the stuff that goes along with that. And I think that subconsciously, we've got that tension. It's sort of like it's sort of like keeping your muscles tense for a whole time. Now, first off, anger produces a whole load of nice. Anger produces a whole bunch of things that go on chemically in the body, and adrenaline being one of them. Now, adrenaline is an extremely painful chemical in the body, which pumps up your heart rate and goes like this and makes your muscles tense and ready for action, right? So adrenaline by itself is really hard on your body. So what happens is we get the dopamine shoots up so that it makes it less painful, right? So we get a dopamine hit when we get angry. So we get the adrenaline going, we get the dopamine hit that kind of calms us down. And then, but the strain on your body is such that, like you said, stress. It's stress on your heart, stress on like every part of your body, really, even stress on your brain with this. So when you have a long-term anger, something that you've never resolved, right? Of course, it's still lingering. Your brain still thinks about it, and those reactions still happen in your body.
Yeah. I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, and it's a silent retreat. And it was actually wonderful. When you find you don't have to talk and communicate, it really is kind of wonderful. But part of the meditation is you go around your body, and when something arises, a physical feeling or a mental thought, you don't judge it. You just go anicca, and it means essentially that's okay. You don't judge it. You just recognize that it happened. And the more you scan your body and recognize you don't know what the feelings are. You don't know what created them, okay? But you know that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go out into the real world and you feel those feelings, something happens and you recognize where that spot is in your body, you go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's what I need to recognize and work on.
Mm-hmm.
I love it because I can now someone triggers me and go, oh, that was it. You know? Or and of course it's rarely that person or thing specifically, but that type of situation sits very specifically in the body. And what you just described with your trigger with your ex-girlfriend is something that you are being given the opportunity to do something about it every time you feel that. That's your mini therapy for the day.
Well, and that comes into that flagging system that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
That anger is an opportunity for you to do something about it. Yes.
Well, absolutely. Anger can be used as a tool. As this is where I need to work. This is where what I need to do.
Yeah,
right?
that thing, if it makes me angry, it probably is something in me.
well, it's either something you need, or it's you're afraid of something that you're holding a fear there, or there's an old pain that's never been resolved, or right.
Something it's obviously not working for you. It's something you need to release somehow, some way. It has to be of benefit to you in the noticing of it.
Well, and there's also another progression that I wanted to talk about too.
No.
Yeah. Oh, please. Another progression. So we've established that anger is a cover for fear or an expression of fear. Okay. So we go fear, we go anger, and I want to go up even one further. I want to go rage. Now, rage is an incredibly destructive emotion.
Oh, you've just lost control.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's anger unrestrained, right? Yeah. I wanted to talk about this because what it does, what I found rage does, is it disconnects the brain from the process. And I was married. On my first marriage, I had a daughter who, at 3 or 4 years old, would go into that place of rage. Now, it was it could be extremely destructive, but a lot of the times she would just stand there and rage, right? Like she wouldn't be lashing out, but she would be gone.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
And I'm sure that other parents out there will identify with this. And what I found to bring her back down into it was, or let's go through the progression first. So what happened was she didn't get something that she wanted, right? Right? Like say she wanted some orange juice. I'm being very simplistic.
It doesn't have to be anything grand. Yeah. I know someone just like you're going to describe.
Yeah. So I want orange juice, and I go, no, you can't have orange juice, because I don't want to give you the sugar or whatever. Whatever justification I had for not giving her the orange juice, it's like, no, you can't have orange juice. And then she would, she would start yelling and screaming and whining, and like she would go into that place. But that manipulation that said, I'm going to get it, right?
Yeah.
But it got to a point where it just went over an edge. It's sort of like she's dove off this cliff, and she was no longer the little girl that I knew. She was just totally consumed and controlled by the rage, the anger, right? And so she would go off this cliff, and I recognized it. I understood that she was no longer there. Like there was no cognizant part of her that was doing this. And that rage, of course, sometimes would lash out, and sometimes it would just be screaming, like at the top of her lungs. She's totally irrational. She's totally not there. And I knew how to bring her down, which was I very, very rarely ever yelled loudly or even got angry. I had to be able to tap into my own anger and yell, the whole male, yell. And that's extreme yelling of I'm the man and you should listen to me kind of thing. Well, whatever that is. Anyway, so it's like, but with anger, what it did is it reconnected her brain to something that was so abnormal and unusual that she had to come back.
Didn't work with the person I know.
No? Okay.
I had to just let it happen.
Oh,
and when it was finished, this person, at first I didn't believe it, but I saw it enough times that this person didn't even know it had happened after a certain point.
Right. Well,
when you say went over the cliff, that's exactly what happened. Had no idea.
I knew somebody that was exactly the same too. It was now he was extraordinary as a child. He would, like, you would deny him a glass of apple juice, and it would be 8 hours of screaming, would not stop.
It wasn't 8 hours, but you could count on at least an hour most of the time, if not more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well,
at the top of.
Yeah, atop of their lungs. And
so may I ask, Drew, what is your point about rage then?
So when I'm talking about rage, I'm talking about, this is anger without any thought. I think that it's rage is anger that has gone to the point where you are no longer absolutely rational. There's no rationale to it at all.
That might be going all the way back down to reptilian.
Yeah, I think that when we get to that point, it's just, we're off the charts. I hate to say this, but it's sort of like we stop becoming cognizantly human, and we go to just becoming something else.
Maybe I can say it a different way. Sure. We go away from being cognizantly a multi-level being, mm-hmm. and back into being purely human. Mm-hmm. We lose contact with our rationale. We lose contact with our spiritual aspect. We go back into simply being, this is what we want, and this is how we get it. We are purely human with no other thought.
Maybe. This is a tough one, because I understand the feeling of it. I've certainly been enraged in my life.
I can tell you 2 examples of when I was fully enraged, and it wasn't a pretty sight, because I was yelling at the top of my voice in the screechiest screech you could ever do, and what I was saying to the other person was absolutely and intentionally calculated to make them feel as bad as I could make them feel. Mm-hmm. And I only remember doing that 2 times in my life, but I have absolutely done that. Yeah. So I understand on some level, not fully the over the cliff level, but I understand that level. And it was because that person made not just me, but a broader swath of the population that I loved, diminished them. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what would make the people we are speaking of do it, but except to say that somehow I feel they felt diminished, mm-hmm. by not getting what they want. Somehow they identified with that outside thing so completely that not getting it was traumatic to them.
Yeah. Well, and my main point for bringing up rage is that anger is a really excessive anger is a real big doorway into rage, where we get to the point that we become, instead of human beings, more human doings, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Right, and that then you're just, now all you can do is express the amount of adrenaline, the chemicals that are going on. That's it.
Yeah, you're pure reaction. You're not thought, not rational thought most of the time.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any rational thought to past that, other than to either to destroy, like utterly,
Like road rage.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And again, we get into that. I've never had road rage. I've had like road anger, just because. And of course, anger is I'm not getting what I want because you're too slow in front of me, right? So you get into that, but I've never gone over the edge, right? But then again, I don't even know what really does it. I know that part of it's chemical makeup.
Yeah, I think it's just the literally the straw that broke the camel's back a lot of the time. When my daughter, when we lived in Korea, my daughter, in fact, the last taxi ride she took coming home from school before we moved back to the States, or moved her back to the States, she was in the back seat. Now they don't have seat belts, and they didn't at the time in the back seat of taxis. They were all tucked in or even taken out. And for some reason, it was the last straw. Someone cut this taxi off when they were coming into a choke point from 2 down to 1 lane. And this guy wouldn't let him in, and he just started, it just snapped.
Yeah.
And, and he's bumping this guy off the road, and my daughter is in the back seat going, GD, where's the seatbelt when you need it? Right. And all she could do is, when he finally stopped, just throw some money at him and get out, because who knows when it's really going to end. But we were convinced it was just in Seoul's traffic. It was just the last straw.
Wow. Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about too was the different levels of anger, right? So it's
I'm
one thing.
Pissed at you right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one level,
Right. Well, I mean, and then it's how we utilize it. And the thing is what I found with most people when I talk to them, I said, well, why are you angry? I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated. And then, of course, that whole idea, but now I'm angry because you called me angry, right? It's like,
the what they call the resting face. When I was young, but why are you mad? Well, I'm not mad. This is no expression. But then I was mad. Yeah.
And now I'm mad because you think I'm mad.
I'm mad. Yeah.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Yeah. So like, I'm not mad. I'm frustrated. That one comes up a lot. And I said, yeah, but frustrated is anger.
It's a level of it. Yeah.
It's a level of it, right? Like, I mean, it's
progression into full blown.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and so, I mean, to me, because I'm an analytical guy, I just go, hey, it's all anger. It's not like anger. I mean, yeah, there's degrees, right? So we mark these degrees as frustration, right? All the way up to, so let's look that middle line. So let's look at it like this, right? So we go frustrated. I'm not really getting what I want, but I'm more tolerant, I guess, would be tolerant anger. I'd call frustration. I call it anger light, actually.
I'm open to constructive criticism a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
More.
Right. And then we've got that section of, we go up to the halfway point. Well, now we're doppling into real anger. And then we go back past the 3/4 point, and then we're getting into the rage area, right? So when we're talking about anger, and we're talking about the reasons that we are angry, afraid, don't touch me because I'm hurting, or I want to get what I want, right? So I'm using it as a manipulation. So frustration, what's frustration? That's a signal to us, obviously. There's something that's happening.
Yeah. So would you say that all of it is, whatever level of anger we have, is our expressing somehow something very simple that we just don't feel as loved as we would like to feel right now?
Well, I think that when it comes right down to it, our fear is that we're not going to be accepted or acceptable,
and that's we're not feeling loved.
Right. Exactly. It is absolutely that. And remember that we're taught that being loved, I mean, all we have to do is take a look at it from a mom standpoint. Take a look at how we treated our children, right? So be it boy or girl, from the age of 0 to about 2 to 3 to 5, about 5 years old. I think 4 or 5 would be where our switching point is. Take a look at how we treated these children up until that point. Oh, you got a boo-boo. Oh, come here. That's okay. Or you all of a sudden it's like, I rode my bike for the first time by myself. Oh, you're amazing. Right. And then about 5 years old, we transition into suck it up.
Into expectations, rather.
Right. That these huge expectations that we have in the kids. Up until that point, we were taught that it's okay to feel loved. And then we're pushed away.
Well, I was a little bit older when I have a very personal example of when that shift happened with my father and I. I started to become a woman at 9 years old. Mm-hmm. The first little things. And because of, won't go into all of it, but that was when my father and mother decided that my father had to stay as far away as possible from inappropriate touching of his daughter. So he stopped hugging me. Mm-hmm. And I remember vividly the day it happened. And that's the kind of shift that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Why isn't my father hugging me anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's wrong with me now?
Yeah, what's wrong with me now?
Right. Yeah. And here's where our ability to communicate comes into play, right? And especially with children, to be able to explain things. Like, I mean, if he explained them to you, but he didn't even know himself, really. I would.
No, well, he did on some level, but he knew what he was doing. But I'm 68 years old. Back when I was 9 years old, people weren't talking about these things, and men sure weren't really talking about these things. No. For all of the things that I think are going wrong in our world, there are so many things going right in our world right now with regards to the allowing of full communication. Mm-hmm. If someone is willing to take the plunge into the vulnerability of doing it. And I know you've been listening to Brene Brown recently. That vulnerability is a privilege to reveal to someone. Mm-hmm. But we're not willing to even give anyone that privilege right now because we're so fearful. Mm-hmm. It goes into the anger,
yeah.
And it's all counterproductive to what we really desire.
Right. Well, and I think you're right. I think that one of our main reasons that we're so angry and fearful is because at a certain age, it stopped being acceptable to be loved, and it was weak to be loved, to show that you love.
But it is acceptable to be angry and push the other person away before they can hurt you.
Right.
That's okay.
And we're living in a world right now of that division, and the more that we push each other away, the angrier we get. The angrier we get, the more we push each other away.
And we're going to end up blowing up the whole place and having to start over again.
It's certainly possible. But, I mean, which is why it's so important to understand
these emotions
with a progression of this, right? So important to be able to tell people. I said, listen, if you're angry, yes, it's because you're not getting something that you want. What is it that you want? We really want connection. We really want to be acceptable and accepted. And we really don't feel that because from our earliest, I mean, and sometimes it's from our earliest childhood, we felt rejected. I mean, imagine if you were an orphan raised in an orphanage or any of those things that I didn't get. But I mean, my dad left when I was very, very young, so I didn't really have a father figure. I had a mom that had to be responsible for both my sister and I completely, who wasn't really equipped for it. And it's, when we run into those things, it's very easy to understand, like I was angry because my mom didn't, or I was angry because my dad didn't. But the truth is, I'm angry because I feel like I was rejected and I wasn't acceptable.
Yeah. And it's easy to say, well, now that you're an adult, you can change your mind. But we're not given any tools to do so. In school, we're given, we're not even shown how to balance a checkbook, much less how to balance ourselves.
Well, and to be able to talk to, and to be able to have somebody to talk to that we don't feel judged by.
To be able to recognize, yes.
Right?
Yeah, to be able to recognize what's going on as something more than what is apparently so.
Well, and I mean, I don't think that, on some levels, we've gotten to the point where we've come together as a society and we've created all of these wonderful things. I take a look at the camera that I'm looking into. I take a look at the microphone setup that I have here. I take a look at the computers, and I take a look at all of the stuff that we've been able to achieve because we've come together as a community and shared skills, right? And being able to utilize those people that can invent and do all of those things. And the coming together of all of that stuff, right? And I look at all of these incredible marvels that we have, and it was done by cooperation and understanding. Yeah. Now we've gotten so far away from that we're using social media to distance ourselves.
Yeah, it's because we're into the individualism thing.
Right.
We have, even in our economy, we have all the mechanisms in place to have, and this is what will drive some people crazy, but to have a global economy that is locally responsive,
right,
if you will.
Yeah.
We're just not using the facilities properly. We're not using it with the same intent.
And I agree. And part of it is that anger is more acceptable than love.
Yeah.
Fear is the least acceptable thing in the world. So we cover it up. And again, this is anger's role, is if I'm angry because it's acceptable, then I'm not weak, because fear and love.
All of these things you're describing are pushaways.
Yeah.
Away the thing that we wish to draw unto ourselves.
Well, and I mean,
away. It is a literal energy. It's a physical thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's some of the key. Some of the key is understanding the words that we need to understand. Anger being one of them. Yes, anger is all the things that we've been talking about. It can be used for good, absolutely. There's no question. But we go into what we were talking about righteous anger and finding out what righteous anger really is, as opposed to what it shouldn't be.
Yeah, how to use it as the tool that it can be.
Exactly.
To bastardizing it.
And anger is a very, very good tool when you can consciously see it and go, wait a minute. You don't have to go, I go to the place of, what am I afraid of, right? I automatically go there. But you can go, what am I angry at? Why am I angry at that? Knowing full well that anger, even though it's more socially acceptable, even though it is what we were taught since we were kids to do, even in women and men, the difference, right? Is women, it's more acceptable for women, even though, and listen to this fully before you respond, even though in what I see is that women can cry, they're allowed, right? But that's usually before they get angry. Whereas in men, it's the other way around.
And that's not necessarily true, because I know when I get angry,
mm-hmm.
I cry mm-hmm. involuntarily.
Mm-hmm.
And it pisses me off, because in the face of the other person, I know it makes me look weak.
Exactly.
So it's not just a male thing.
Yeah. But it's more acceptable in women than it is in men.
Not really.
I agree.
Because when that woman looks weak in a business setting or whatever,
yeah.
then she gets completely dismissed.
I know. When I'm saying this,
well, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all I see is it's more acceptable, and especially if you're a woman not in a professional.
But bottom line, anger is counterproductive to anything anyone wants to do.
Exactly. It really is a destructive emotion. I think
and it really does. If the other person, you have really on some level destroyed your credibility, even though you have increased your triumph in some ways, the bully aspect, the manipulation aspect of it, you have increased that definitely, but you have completely destroyed your credibility with a lot of people.
Well, and like I said, we can utilize anger as a flag system that can help build. Yep. Right? It's the only way that I can think that anger can help build us as a society, of saying, I'm angry. Wait a minute. Why am I angry? The question.
Yeah, it's a natural emotion, but it's not a productive one.
No, it's definitely a natural emotion.
It can be used as a tool to change.
I agree.